Hi, I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and today's episode is about using breathwork to double your income in your business. And I'm joined by Adrienne Rivera.
Hi, I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and I help high-achieving spiritual women of color entrepreneurs break through income ceilings and reconnect with their intuition without burning down their business.
I'm joined by Adrienne Rivera, and today we're talking about the transformative energy of bringing breathwork into your business. And be sure to stay to the end because I'll be sharing how you can double your income from last year. First, let me introduce you to our wonderful guest. Adrienne Rivera is the founder of Breath of Gold. She is a world-renowned breathwork facilitator, breathwork trainer, and spiritual business coach. She has curated one of the top trauma-informed breathwork certification training programs in the world that features guest lecturers from a doctor, neuroscience expert, lawyer, therapist, paramedic, and more. Adrienne specializes in supporting entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business owners to reach new levels of success through the practice of breathwork. She's also a sought-after speaker, best-selling author, creator of the Breath of Gold journal, and creator of the Breath of Gold Oracle deck, which I love, by the way. Her clients have said that her breathwork feels like 10 years of therapy in one session. Adrienne's upbeat energy, passion for breathwork, and ability to intuitively guide breathwork experiences elevate her classes to a truly exceptional level. She believes that all of the answers that we're looking for can be found within the breath. Adrienne, so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation and to share how people can really make this possible for themselves.
So tell me first, where were you when you started breathwork? I'm sure you've answered this question a million times, but for people who are a little skeptical at first, especially overthinkers, how did you overcome that to take the first step into experiencing breathwork?
Yeah, like all good things, they find us when we're not really expecting it, when we're not really looking for it. And I stumbled upon a workshop where it was all breath work and I was crying on the floor, tears of joy, tears of euphoria. And I heard all of these messages in a way where I've never experienced it before. I've read audiobooks. I grew up reading self-help books. That was the aisle that my mom went to in the library. And so I grew up listening to and reading a lot of self-help, but there was a difference between hearing something from someone else versus feeling it as a message in my own physical body. And in that first breathwork session that I ever did, I heard the message, everything you're looking for lies within your breath. And that was profound. That was like my initiation. And at the time, it was really powerful for me because I did feel like I was living internally empty, externally seeking. That was the pattern. I was using things outside of me to fill this void. I was overcoming an eating disorder where I had binge eating for 6 years. And I felt like, okay, people aren't always there for you, but food's always there. And I didn't have that healthy relationship with food. So that was an example. I would get into like shopping, online and just try to find stimulation. I would even go from like guy to guy rather than just like committing. And I had all these struggles because I didn't want to just sit with myself, be with myself. I was bored and not interested to really get to know myself at the time. I just wanted the shiny objects of the world. And my lesson was to go within. And it's fascinating even hearing me say this right now, because I remember my mom said my birth story when I was born. I didn't even look at her. I was just looking around like, what is the world? What is this place? And so that's very much how I feel that I live most of my life, is just like, I want this outside connection. And breathwork really gave me that inside connection where I felt deep self-love. I heard a message one time, you are worthy simply because you breathe. I remind people of that often when I lead them in breathwork, meaning that because we exist, because we're alive, we're inherently worthy already. We don't have to prove our worth. Yes, worth can come from work and feeling fulfillment, and that's undeniable. And it's important that we use our valuable time in that way. However, There's something a lot deeper. So that really got me hooked in that first session. And I kept going back to breath work. And I thought I was always just going to cry tears of euphoria. But it turns out you get exactly what you need from breath work. And it's not always that. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's grieving. And I had the first 10 sessions of my life were just wildly different, so healing, really transformational. And I do recommend that people do 10 really deep breath works at least like kind of back to back in their life, because, if you've never done something like that, deep somatic healing, it really does get you acquainted with who you are, your values, what's truly you, what's not you. And it can be hard to just like swim in our head and feel confusion rather than the clear yes of our heart. And in business, we have to be both. We have to be followed by our heart. Like, that's so important. We can't just do a funnel because we heard that it's working well in the industry and we're trying to replicate something that's not authentically us. We need to be smart with strategy, but we also really need to follow the heart. So I really think that breathwork gives us that balance of embodiment. And, if we have a lot of traumas or things from the past that are tinting our perspective of ourselves, we're not going to sell fully. I think one of the biggest ways that breathwork can really help people is just in worthiness. When you feel more worthy, it's easy. You can just double your prices because you decided to overnight when you're an entrepreneur. And, of course, if the value is there, it's worth it. So a lot of it is the worthiness and unraveling the stories around not being worthy. Now, I'm not saying, double your prices tonight. Like, of course, you have to know that you're worthy of delivering at that level of price that you deliver your services, but it's definitely possible. And a lot of people are undercharging because they're not fully believing in themselves.
Very true. Especially in the spiritual space, I've noticed there is a tendency to want to just give and give and give and say, oh, I will receive in the future. But oftentimes they don't even recognize the opportunity to receive in front of them because they're in such a mindset of, oh, I'll just give. How would you recommend somebody shift so they can recognize that they're worthy so that they can receive those opportunities? Or even for some of the more established business owners, how can they create that shift in identity, even though their mentor might be saying, oh, no, that's not the right strategy for you or for them?
Yeah, this is interesting. Like, this whole worthiness thing, I think it really highly depends on the person. Like, every single person has a unique story about what they've been through, how many years they've believed they're not worthy, how they coped with that, what they're used to, what their threshold is. It really comes down to like their nervous system capacity, like how much they can tolerate, how much they can hold. Sometimes people go through trauma and it makes them more successful because they have this fire under their butt and they're just, I'm going to prove everyone wrong mentality, and that can work for them. But it is healthier to do it from a place of, I am doing this because I love it. And it's like intrinsic rather than I have to run away from this part of me that is scary. So I really think that breathwork can give that. For me, I get a ton of business clarity from breathwork, and I'm sure you do as well. And we could talk about that. And I will say one thing, because I do business coaching for when people graduate my breathwork facilitator program and help them start their business. And what I find is that you can't just use your own business wisdom. You need to at least understand how business works in order to use breathwork effectively. And I'll give you an example. In my early days of business, I loved shiny objects. I wanted to launch new things all the time. I didn't want to plan. I didn't want to, be structured. I just wanted to do breath work and be intuitive and move on. And I was successful and it did work. However, it wasn't sustainable. And sometimes I would make mistakes like, oh, let's try this on TikTok. Oh, no, let me get on Instagram. Let me do a reel for this and that. And it's not sustainable to be everywhere at once, especially when you're a one-person show. And I think a lot of people here in the audience need to hear that. Like, when you're looking at other people's strategies and you're thinking, she's posting here, here, and here, like, they have a whole team. They have virtual assistants. They have people supporting them. So you don't want to take on too much. Yeah, but many times the one intuitive message will be more like relationship-based, like reach out to this one person, collaborate with this one person. Remember that person who said they wanted to work with you that you forgot to follow up with, or, ooh, here's an idea of a interesting thing. Like, for example, I just did breath work earlier this year, and business clarity came through, and I really wanted to make more room for new people in my business mastermind that are coaches and breathwork facilitators. And I didn't want to just do like a 3-day business boot camp. Like, I wanted it to be very specific. So I created in my mind in breathwork, I'm like, what does my ideal client want? I'm like, they want to lead a retreat. And so I'm like, okay, in 3 days, they're going to learn how to lead a retreat, and we're going to use breathwork. We're going to talk about strategy. We're going to get them intuitive. And so that's an idea of a business download that came through for me that then I actionized and, made it happen. And it launches tomorrow, which is very exciting. And I'm excited about that. I think it's important to have innovation, especially in today's market and business, because so much of society is feeling saturated. It's feeling like ChatGPT, and it's not bad. I think that everyone should be using AI because it will make them more efficient. But if it's not your own intellectual property, not your own business ideas, it does feel watered down and diluted, which is why I highly recommend breathwork also, not just for worthiness, but getting your own creative insights. That's huge.
And it feels like it's also helping you not only get in touch with your voice, but how to communicate it and market it to others.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can so easily connect in, like, what does my ideal client need to hear today? And like, feel it. And remember when you were likely a past version of your ideal client now.
Absolutely. The other thing is, like, when you mentioned, and I think this is going to be a very strong word for 2026, capacity and building capacity. I don't feel like that's talked about enough in the business space. How does breathwork help you build capacity? And what would you define capacity as for a business owner?
Such a good question. So let's talk about this like your brain is your computer, and your brain can only do so much. So for example, if you have kids, most of the time you're going to be wondering, like, are my kids safe? Are they okay? Do I have dinner on the table? You're going to be taking care of the kids. And that's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's a blessing. And when we start adding all these other things in our brain, it limits our capacity. So maybe that's stress about a launch. Maybe it's trauma. Maybe it's, wondering about something that you're not really taking action on. What I see with a lot of newbie entrepreneurs is that they spend 90% of their time thinking about their business and what they want to do, and they don't do anything. It's just like they're a full-time thinker about their business. I remember the phase when I was that. It's like, what action steps did I even take? Yeah. So you got to take action. I talked a lot about business. I planned a lot. I thought about it. So capacity is nervous system capacity, but it's also capacity in your mind. Like, it's hard because you are being a human, and like, let's say you're moving or selling your house, like that is going to limit your capacity in some way. If you're a solo entrepreneur, or you don't like, your business is set up so it really heavily depends on you, your capacity is going to change because your focus and energy shift towards something else. So capacity to me is like how much you can take on, and it requires focus. It requires nervous system regulation. The main style of breathwork that I lead for like business clarity and releasing trauma is circular connected breath. But when it comes to regulating your nervous system, heart coherent breathing is my favorite. And that's shorter. It can be done daily. It's quick and easy, but it helps you to feel safe in your body so that even when your life is chaotic and hectic and you have a million things, pulling for you and your attention, it just makes things easier. So I really think that the word that's really coming up even more than capacity is like your capacity. What can you take in? What can you hold? Is also your focus, because there are so many shiny objects, especially ads. Like, you're going to see ads as an entrepreneur of like, you've been marketing wrong. Try Facebook ads. Ads are dead. You need to go back to the way it was, human connection. And it's like you're getting all these mixed messages all the time. And at the end of the day, you just have to fully commit. It's kind of like financial investing. Someone can study their whole life figuring like, oh, should I buy a house? Maybe real estate's for me. Oh, should I maybe do stocks? I don't really know which one's the one. And like at the end of the day, you have to just take action and choose and hope that it works and trust yourself. And if it doesn't work, you know that you can always make back anything in life except for time. So the only thing that you're costing yourself is time, waiting, and not making a decision. So it's important to focus. It's important to move forward, make decisions, with confidence, even if you're not sure how it's going to work. Like, for example, my launch tomorrow, I have no idea how many people are going to show up. I know how many people are registered, but I don't know if they're going to show up tomorrow. What if they're sick? Who knows? But I'm putting the energy out there that I'm ready to serve these people. I have the capacity for them. I'm ready to be present. I'm excited about it. And I do feel that that energetic can be felt.
Absolutely. And I love exactly what you were saying about taking that time to recognize what is your capacity before you move forward. If you are not able to meet the needs or the value of your offer or the needs of the clientele that you want to serve, it's just going to fall flat. It's not going to feel authentic, and they're going to miss out on creating an offer that actually doubles their income. So if you are looking to double your income in 2026, this is something that I walk you through step by step. And you can learn more about that in the description below. Adrienne, I'm very curious. How did you build your capacity? Because if you've been following me, I've worked with Adrienne. We actually co-authored the Breath of Gold book. I'm currently enrolled in her facilitation program, and I have her Breath of Gold Oracle deck. So I'm a big fan. Even my kid has a Breath of Gold Oracle deck. So I would love to hear, how did building your capacity, and it sounds like you also did build your capacity to maintain structure. How did that increase your income? And I always love a good double your income story or big increase in your income from doubling your capacity and that structure and that sense of self-trust.
Yes, it definitely came from taking action, feeling worthy enough to take action, moving quickly, feeling excitement. And I would say the worst thing we can do oftentimes in business is stall and pause and think and like use perfectionism, or like, I'm not really ready yet to know, is this going to make anything? Do it and learn. I launched a program back in the day and I made money from it. It was great. And at the end of it, I wasn't really sure if I was that emotionally connected to it. That's okay. Like, I learned a lot about myself through the process, and it really stretched me to actually show up in that way. So what I can really recommend is do breath work. Any entrepreneur who's listening right now, do breath work, especially circular connected breath, once a week, for connecting to yourself, connecting to your intuition, connecting to your business. That's what I do. I do it once a week. And take action. Please take action. Please take action within 24 hours while you're still high from the breath work. And then you get to a point where like it's a little too late to
24
back out.
hours?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes, because the high does wear off. And like, best case scenario is within 1 to 2 hours. Move the needle within 1 to 2 hours if you can. The only time I give you 24 hours is if you're doing it at night. But if it's during the day, do it that day. Because once the needle is moving forward, you are forced to grow your capacity. I have done that several times in my business. I led a 50-person event, a speaking event that you are also a part of, and that really did stretch my own capacity for what was possible and what I could create. And it was way more challenging than I anticipated. In my head, I'm like, this will all work out. And it did all work out. But let me tell you, it was a challenge for sure. And even publishing the book, I was, up late at midnight the night before with the, book formatter, making sure that everything was perfect several times. Like, there was, some miscommunication there. And really, I had to do what it took to make it perfect and get it done on time, because I said there was a deadline. So, especially for the spiritual entrepreneurs listening, use your intuition. That is your gift. That is what will make you successful. My intuition has had me say yes to a lot of creative opportunities that most traditional people would have not said yes to. And I feel really good about those intuitive decisions I've said yes to in my life. However, give yourself deadlines, because I am also a spiritual person. And if I don't have deadlines, nothing will ever get done. And sometimes you do need that masculine structure and motivation to really show up. So other things that I'll say are, you can structure your life in a way where it holds you accountable. Think about the things that benefit you. Like, you can claim that online, claim it to your email list. You can have your audience hold you accountable. You can, if you want to lead a retreat, make a post and say, hey, I'm leading a retreat this fall. Who would be interested in coming? And now you're held accountable. You get to put that retreat together, right? So don't be afraid, take action, move forward. You don't have to have every piece of the puzzle figured out. Like I often don't. I just know the next few steps ahead and then I pivot, knowing that everything is like a dance. You just need to know like a few steps ahead, you move forward, and then you're willing to adapt and reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, and then move forward in that way. So anyone here who's wanting to, expand their capacity, do breathwork once a week. If you go to breathofgold.com/Sunday-breathwork, you can try your first class for free. And the next page, it'll invite you to join for a month free. And you can do any of my recordings that I've created. There's a lot of them on business and expanding your capacity. There's one on that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend feeling it because it's a felt sense. It's something somatic in the body that you can't get from a business course, and you totally need both because otherwise you will be launching on TikTok, doing all this crazy stuff, like very much too scattered. You need the business coach, but you also need your own intuition and your connection to self. So yeah.
And it's like the business coach is the sacred masculine structure. It's giving you the strategy. It's telling you exactly what's going to work for you. While the other side, you have your relationship with breathwork in your body. And that's the divine feminine coming in and guiding you on, okay, this is the best course of action. This is the best way to bring this about. And a lot of times they can mesh together, and sometimes they might feel a little bit mismatched at first. But what I have noticed with more of the higher earners that I work with, the seasoned sellers in the six-figure range, is that they can get into the mentality where they do have the capacity, they do have the structure, they do have the consistency, but they almost lose touch with the divine feminine, their intuition, from being inundated with information and advice and strategies. And they just start to be like, okay, my coach said I'm going to do this. My mentor said I'm going to do this, so I'm just going to do this. So what would you say to someone who's maybe struggling with that identity of being too big to fail? Because I can't change my identity. I can't change my course. Like, what would you say to someone who's feeling that right now?
I love this so much because I understand how challenging this could be. My first business was as a fitness coach, and I had a moment where I was starting to want to pivot and like do more breath work, and I was terrified because I'm like, I already have a book out there about fitness. Oh no, like I can't pivot. Everybody already knows me for fitness. And I chose to pivot anyways, and I'm so glad that I did. And looking back, my fitness business was so puny. In my mind, it was so huge. I'm like, everybody knows me. Barely anyone knew me. I didn't even have a fitness coaching like email list at the time. I didn't even know to build an email list. Like I was so puny, but I thought that I couldn't pivot because it'd be too hard, and that it's never the case. And if you're feeling a call that's greater than you, it will be greater than you if you stay the course. Now, I'm not recommending that, you close your business overnight and like start something new from scratch. There can be a crossover period, and I highly recommend that. Even for new entrepreneurs, like I recommend keeping your part-time job or day job and building on the side so that you're not building from a place of scarcity. Yeah. So I would say for anyone who is really in the strategy and they're, feeling disconnected and they're wondering, how do I get back in touch with my feminine energy? How do I get back in touch? I would say show up more, speak more, because you'll realize how intuitive you are when you start opening your mouth. Like I channel everything that I do. Like my master classes, sometimes I'll use slides, it depends. But when I lead breathwork, it's all intuitive. When I'm on a podcast, it's all intuitive. And I really trust that there's this higher force, higher consciousness, God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to label it, is flowing through me, giving me the words. And by the end of it, I'm always like, wow, like that was really good. Like it was all in there, but amazing. Like I feel lit up and inspired by it too. So I would say use your voice more. Your voice is one of the most feminine things that we have, because when it's activated, and you're not just like preparing a speech and you're showing your emotions, that's really where your audience is going to connect in with you in a deeper way. So that also makes me want to remind people here that, you're you, and that's why people are going to hire you. Like people, yes, they want the result that you promise, but there's a million people that also promise that result. So there has to be this connection, this human connection where they know, like, and trust you. And you've got to be comfortable enough being your authentic self and taking the risk of, oh yeah, people may judge me, people may not like me, and that's okay because you're okay with you. And breathwork can teach you that.
I love that. It's really about being at home in your own body, being at home with yourself and your relationship with yourself. I am very curious. What has been the most profitable idea that you have had after a breathwork session? You can tell me how it connected, how it connects to manifestation, just to give our listeners a little bit of an idea of what can happen. And I guess start with my own
start
story.
with your own story. I'm like, man, which one do I want to share?
Absolutely. I'll start
You
first.
start first.
Okay. So, I mean, I have to say, our first interaction was what led to so many opportunities for me in my business. I had never experienced breathwork before I went to the Emancipation Experience, which is an event hosted by DL Sharon. She's renamed it since to Millionaires of Color. And Adrienne was there. She was facilitating a 30-minute breathwork journey. And I went, and it was completely transformational. It transformed my life for the rest of the year. A month later, though, I was co-authoring a book. And by the end of the year, our first session was in April. Okay. So by the end of the year, I had that co-authored book published. And I got about 50 new subscribers. I started to build up my brand. I had these brand new photos to demonstrate the level of work that I was doing. And to show people, I speak, I have all these gifts, I have all this experience. And it just built up my audience and my connection and my revenue. Not to mention that the book hit #1 in 3 different categories so early on. So that's my personal story about how quickly the effects of breath work can set things into motion. What about you? I'm sure you have some crazy stories.
Yeah, I would say my favorite was I did breath work, and the message that came through was to lead a spiritual business mastermind retreat. And I got so excited about it, and it was clear, like, it has to be like near Reno. That's where I live in Nevada. And I, after that call, started looking for vacation rental houses and seeing, where am I going to lead this retreat? And I made this spreadsheet. I was so in my head at first. I was like trying to weigh the pros and cons of all these places, like 30 different places. Nothing really spoke to my heart, so I let it go. And then a week later, I was like, oh yeah, that retreat. I did breathwork again, and I remembered I have to lead this retreat. And so then I started looking for houses, and what popped up on Airbnb was like new vacation rental. And I was looking through the pictures, and I kid you not, but the exact picture that was on my vision board from 8 months prior, I'd been looking on Sotheby's, this like $4.2 million house was on there, and whoever bought it turned it into a vacation rental property. And so I ended up leading 2 retreats there. Because of what happened at that retreat I was hosting, there was someone who came who told me they did a TEDx talk. And then that inspired me to do my TEDx talk. And I had a participant there who's like now a best friend. And so many connections happened, so many opportunities happened from that event that are still kind of like the relationships from that event are still producing opportunity, whether it be financial or not. Another great thing was I hired a photographer, and I had branding and a new photo shoot there and this amazing house. So that, I'm sure, made me lots of money from promoting my brand in that high level way. And also the identity shift of being in my vision board house. Like, that was a wild manifestation that was so rewarding. And being there, I remember calling my husband and crying, like saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, I always knew that being in a house would make a difference, but it really does. It means like so much to me. Like, I can't believe it's so beautiful. And I just was so grateful. And it was this moment that was really fully actualized and tangible of like, I've made it. Like, here I am in the house, I've made it. And at that point, it was just kind of like, here I am growing my business. Here I am, I'm growing, I'm trying, I'm growing. And at that point, there was this tangible moment in my reality where it was like, okay, here you are. Look around with your open eyes. This is what's here. Which is why I think that tangible things are very important. on the backside of breathwork. Like it's either a book that's published physically in your hands, a speech on stage, a retreat, like something that you're physically doing where you can open your eyes and say, wow, I created this. One of my other favorite breathwork manifestations was I kept on getting this message to like build my dream house and buy land. And so I kept on being guided there, and I would see the forest in my mind and the trees and everything. And then about 10 months later, the property came and I ended up buying the land, and I did breath work with the person who leads me in breath work every week. On my little iPhone on the land after I'd purchased it, and I opened my physical eyes and looked up. I'm like, these are the trees that I saw in my mind. This is crazy. Now, since then, I had the intuitive feeling to sell the land, and we actually ended up selling the land less than a month ago. And we did like the most amazing creative deal where we like seller financed it, where we get like 10% interest for 48 months and then a balloon payment at the end. So I didn't even realize that I was becoming an investor. Like I thought it was the house, but now I'm literally an investor, and I've also had other opportunities come from that way too. I do think that breath work opens me up to being receptive to the opportunities that are always around me. And it just trains me to see through a different lens rather than walking with my head down. I'm aware of the opportunities because I'm more connected to myself.
I agree. This is so funny. I have a house manifestation story. It's a little different, but same thing. I was doing breath work. I think this was at a point when I was really heavily into breath work and I was doing it daily. And then I talked to Adrienne, and Adrienne was like, don't do it daily. You'll become a mouth breather. So I was so much enjoying the experience and the revelations I was having. And during that process, I had this revelation of, okay, yeah, we earn our house, and we know that in our culture, ownership is a really big thing, right? But we also know that the system doesn't really work for us. So I just started to look at how I was feeling. I wasn't feeling happy there. I was feeling like there needed to be a big change. I didn't want to stay there, but I did want to stay in the district. And so I know my kids were so happy. So I wanted to have a house within the district too. Believe it or not, later that day from doing the breath work, I've probably been doing it for about 2 weeks consistently. And I told my husband about my idea. And then one day my husband, he says, babe, check it out. Like on Zillow, the house down the street is up for sale. So we moved 4 houses down.
Wow.
So our kids get to stay on the same bus, same district, same school system. And
Oh
it's
my
perfect.
gosh.
So yeah.
That's so perfect. I love that story
Thank
so
you.
much. Wow.
But you'll miss it if you don't pay attention. Adrienne, I so
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing all of this valuable information with us and being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. And I hope anyone who listens comes to Breathwork. I would love to meet you. Reach out on Instagram, send me a voice note. I'd love to send you one back.
All of Adrienne's info are in the show notes below, so you don't have to miss out on anything. If today's episode resonated with you and you're ready to double your income, I invite you to check out Soul-Centered Success. It's designed for my high-achieving women of color who want to see a breakthrough and pass their income ceilings by tapping into their intuition. Thank you so much for listening. See you next episode. Bye.